In tonight's Government Insider, the use of personal email accounts for government business. On Friday, the Defense Department released more than 1,300 pages of emails and attachments from Defense Secretary Ash Carter's personal account. He used it to conduct government business for nearly a year. For more, I'm joined by Francis Rose, federal government expert and host of National Defense Week, Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock on WMAL Radio. Francis, Carter has stopped this practice entirely. The press has all of these emails, and the Defense Secretary has apologized. Is there anything more to the story here?
Well, thanks for having me on, Morris. There's probably only one more element here, and that is that all of the officials who come into the new administration next January will probably get a very, very detailed briefing, or many briefings, on exactly how to use email and when it's appropriate and when it's not to use personal emails. The reason for that is this overlap with Secretary Carter's email situation and what we're learning about Secretary Clinton when she was Secretary of State. During the time that Secretary Carter was using his personal email account, all of the news accounts about Secretary Clinton's use of her personal email account were very prominent. And so I have a lot of confidence that the next administration and all of the organizations like the National Academy of Public Administration and the Partnership for Public Service that are working on transition assistance for the new administration will probably have lots of details and lots of information for new government officials about what to do and what not to do.
You said it. As we know, Ash Carter isn't the only high-profile official under scrutiny for this practice. Hillary Clinton has been under the microscope for months, and today the Washington Post reports 147 FBI agents have been deployed to run down leads related to her use of a private email server when she was Secretary of State. Now, that sounds pretty serious. Where is this going, Francis?
Well, far be it from me to try to predict what the FBI and the Justice Department might or might not do in the environment that we're in right now. But where I think it will probably go in the next several months is continuing to draw attention to the way that officials in the federal government, particularly federal employees, handle their personal correspondence, whether it's email or we may even learn something about ways that texts are handled and on devices that are personal devices or government devices. There's a lot of gray area right now among all of these various ways of communicating that, when I say gray areas, the policies are very clear, but federal employees and especially political appointees are not as clear on what they can and can't do. So I would expect to see a lot of clarity as the administration, the Obama administration, starts to wind down and prepare to make way for the next administration.
Now, meanwhile, the Justice Department has charged 7 Iranian hackers with attacking dozens of banks and a small dam near New York City. This is an unprecedented case, and it didn't get much coverage last week after the terror attacks in Belgium. Bring us up to date. Well,
the key element here that I think is more critical for people to understand than the issue with the banks, because banks have been under cyber attack for a long time,
right,
is the dam being attacked. One of the biggest fears that I hear from people who are involved in cybersecurity for a living, one of the biggest things they're afraid of is attacks on critical infrastructure.
Sure.
They're afraid of attacks on the electrical grid in particular. Apparently the electrical grid is particularly vulnerable to cyber attack, but also other infrastructure systems like, as you mentioned, the dam. There are all kinds of other infrastructure networks that are hooked up to the internet, and so that means they're vulnerable to hacking. And cybersecurity has not necessarily been in the top of mind for the companies that are running these things, not because they're lazy or ill-intentioned or anything like that. It's just starting to occur to people that, oh, this is on the internet, this is networked, and so somebody could hack into this and get it to do something that we don't want it to do. And so this is a curve, a learning curve, that a lot of these companies, whether they're private sector companies or public sector organizations, are really starting to get a handle on. But it's happening, unfortunately, because the bad guys are forcing them to think about it, and so they're a little bit behind the 8 ball in some cases, Morris.
All right, before you go, I'd like to talk about the F-35 program. The Pentagon says it can reduce the price of each plane by about 15%. Mm-hmm. You covered this on National Defense Week yesterday. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is the head of the F-35 program for Lockheed Martin says that he believes they can reduce the price of the F-35A variant of the aircraft program by about 15%, get it down from about $100 million a plane to about $85 million a plane in the next 3 years. The problem is the expert that I had on aircraft, Richard Abulafia, tells me that's probably not likely to transfer to the F-35B and C variants because, for one reason, there will be far fewer of those made. The F-35A is by far the highest number of aircraft to be made in the program. And the other issue with the B and C is that each of them have very specialized components that will make it also difficult for them to be produced in enough quantity or in enough efficiency to realize the savings that Lockheed expects to get on the F-35A variant.
It's expensive. That's why they call it the plane that ate the Pentagon. Francis Rose, host of National Defense Week on WMAL Radio. Thanks again, Francis.
Thank you, Morris.